Hello, my fellow readers. This is iDarkSymphony777 with a new video. Just like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, and leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts the video. So, we're finally here. This is recording my third Q&A. So, I'd like to thank everyone for patiently waiting for me to go through all these stories. It's been a hectic year, a hectic while, but I'm now at like the very end, and this is the end. And so to celebrate the fact that I'm taking suggestions again, I got my questions right here. There's not a lot of questions as I wanted there to be. I was hoping there to be a little more questions, but I'm happy with the questions that I got because there's a couple. Yeah, there's like 10 or so questions total. So I'm happy to at least know what's that, you know, I got people who watch. Let's just get into it. Also, now is the time. Not only if you want to hear your thoughts on anything else, but in the comments, leave any fanfiction suggestions. Just remember that if I get like backlog again, I have to freeze it again. So just understand. So let's start with the first question. This one's written by Meme King III. I think he was actually going under a different name, named like Zach something, but they changed his name. It was the picture with Waluigi on it because why doesn't anyone live the way? And he asked, which fandoms do you think make the best crossovers? That's actually a very easy question. Pound for pound, ironically, you're probably not gonna expect this, but I think the best crossovers are the My Little Pony ones. Bar none. First off, you have Turnabout Storm. Really great crossover. You have probably one of the greatest fanfictions of all time in Fallout Equestria, which is a crossover. And a lot of people said it. A lot of people can make the argument it's the greatest fanfiction. And granted, it's subjective. The whole which is your personal favorite. Like my personal favorite is Better Off Alone. So the fact that a lot of people say that this is up there amongst like the greatest fanfictions, that's a heavy thing. There's a lot of really good crossovers. There's ones based off Castlevania. There's a couple based off Yu-Gi-Oh that I did video of. I think there's actually one based off Monster Musume of all things, where like the girls are like the monster girls. Which is kind of weird because I really don't want to picture Pinkie Pie as Sue. I like Sue, but that's just creepy. But yeah, pound for pound, My Little Pony has bar none the best crossovers. Any other stories that have crossovers? Probably. I'd probably have to say maybe Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, there's a lot of good Yu-Gi-Oh! Crossovers. Main problem is a lot of them are just crossing over with other Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows. Like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Crossed over with Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. Have fun. And lots of other shenanigans. But I haven't really read a lot of them, so I don't really know. So my only real answer would be My Little Pony because I know how famous Fallout Equestria is. I read Fallout Equestria Pink Eyes, which is a story set in Fallout Equestria. And of course, there's My Little Castlevania, My Little Arkham. My Little Arkham is a story I actually want to review because I read like the first 2-3 chapters and I really loved what I was reading, and I actually want to read it again. Probably once I'm done with like the last couple of stories in the backlog, I may actually just go grab that story and do a review of it. But My Little Pony, again, probably the best fandom that has the best crossover, simply because there's just so many. Especially if you go on FIMfiction.net, because that site has like such a high ceiling for like quality. Next one, Garrison Goldberg asks, "What types of fanfictions do you review?" I actually review any types of fanfictions, and as really the only rule is they have to be completed. There were like one exception, which was a Dan versus story, which I did like on a trial basis where I review each chapter, but he retired that story. And just retired it to, You know, so I basically said this was this like the only story I was going to make an exception for, and it was specifically going to be a one-time thing anyway. So that other than that, I will review pretty much any story as long as the story itself is completed. I will be very hesitant with like erotic stories because I don't know, because you know how YouTube is with like everything going on with with dumb algorithms and stuff like that. So I don't know. So I'm very hesitant to do readings of erotic stories. So I don't. But that's mainly because I did review one erotic story, which is a No More Heroes story, but I don't know how far I should push it, and just keep it vague, stuff like that. So here we have the next one is actually the bulk of the questions. These are 7 questions written by Cardboard Hut. Everyone knows, if you know who Cardboard Hut is, she's the author of The Straw Hats and the Iliad and Zoro's Odyssey. I can't wait to read the 3rd story when that's inevitably finished. So question number 1, what grabs your attention in a story blurb that makes you want to click? Honestly, that depends on what type of story you're going for, because there's different genres, the whole thing with fanfiction is there's so many things that can grab your attention, especially in a story blurb. Like when it came to Better Off Alone, let's use Better Off Alone example. The reason it caught my eyes was because I happen to be a big fan of Vivian as a character. Vivian is one of my favorite video game characters of all time. I really loved her character arc in Thousand Year Door. And so the fact that there was a fan fiction about one of my favorite video game characters, I just immediately dived in. Most of the time, I will read, honestly, anything that catches my eye. It could be for any reason whatsoever. Like, the whole reason why another example would be Zoro, Straw Hats and the Iliad and Zoro's Odyssey. I only found out about this story because I was like looking for Perona stories, because I just happen to like Perona as a character and I just wanted to read anything to do with her character, and Zoro's Odyssey was like the only one that was actually completed. So, that was completed and not an erotic story where she does the horizontal limbo with Zoro. But that's beside the point. But I'm trying to collect my thoughts. But yeah, anything that really grabs my attention, it just varies from story to story, because one thing may grab my attention in this story, but something else may grab my attention in the story. It varies from fanfiction to fanfiction. Number 2, does the number of reviews matter? I actually made a video talking about this. And basically said, in the end of the day, reviews don't matter, because some fanfictions are basically artificially inflated by algorithms. Like when I did Tourmaline and It Doesn't Matter, those are very average stories. They're not really that good. They're okay at best, but they have a massive amount of reviews because they started a character named Peridot in Steven Universe that was just introduced, so people were just very much liking anything to do with Peridot without thinking of the actual quality, which is why it doesn't, like, if you go to, let's actually go to the Steven Universe section and see how many reviews as of right now It Doesn't Matter has. Where is it? No, it's up there. It is. Let's see, Steven Universe reviews. Let's make it English just in case. Where is it? Don't even bother. Don't even bother currently is the 5th most reviewed Steven Universe story, unless you get rid of like the English one. I think 1, 2. Yeah, the most. That's hilarious. The most reviewed Steven Universe fanfiction is a Spanish story. I ain't gonna read that. Oh wait, I forgot to hold on one second. I forgot to add in all language. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Never mind. See, Don't Even Bother is the 6th most reviewed, 7th. I think if you count the Spanish story. Let's just let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, seventh most reviewed. And Tourmaline is actually the 8th. And Don't Even Bother is a very average story. It doesn't really do anything. And Tourmaline is slightly better, but a large portion of those reviews are just inflated because simply because Peridot was in the story. There was no other reason for a large portion of these reviews besides Peridot in it. So it's like if you go to the reviews, like this was great, amazing, cute. I love this fic. It's one of my favorites. A lot of this is just very, very vague questions. Like, who else just skips the part with the gems and only be seen in Peridot being adorable? Yeah, really concerned any parenting that involves lying to Greg about Steven being missing. I mean, it's just not really a lot, especially if you go to like the end. It's just a bunch of just very, very vagueness. Like, oh yes, yeah, I like it. It's just, it doesn't. And there are more ways to do this. Like, if something's popular and if something happens, it's just based off that popular. Like with Among Us. Like, if someone wrote an Among Us fan fiction, a lot of people are just going to review that fan fiction because it's Among Us. There's just going to be just no reason for it to not be it. And that's the name of the game for a lot of stuff. Like, anything from, like, fan fiction to, like, corporations doing the whole Pride Month thing. Like, it's annoying when they do it and then they don't do it all the way because they intentionally leave out the pride flag for like Middle Eastern countries. It's just weird. I got a call. And basically a lot of stuff like there's so much factors into how it's played. Like a lot of the better stories are just simply don't really get to see the sunlight, mainly because more people are just interested in what's in the fad itself instead of whether or not the story is good. And more likely, the better stories will probably spread through word of mouth rather than just, hey, what's popular right now? Green Dorito hair chick. And stuff like that. But yeah, next question she asked is, what are your thoughts on not tagging crossovers as crossovers? Now this was she did ask a longer version. I just summarized it as one sentence. I honestly think it's very disingenuous. The one thing crossovers are a harder sell to do than regular fanfiction because a lot of what makes crossover is very hard for a lot of people is just simply how to implement the two worlds, the two stories very, very well. And I think it's very disingenuous when you don't tag it as a crossover, because then the people who are reading it expecting a normal story, then they see something based off another fandom, they're gonna honestly feel like they've been deceived, or it's a slap in the face, or they've been lied to. I'd rather read a crossover, know what the crossover is, and be expecting, okay, what's this crossover about? How is it gonna interact with the worlds? Like with Fusion of Destinies, it's Metroid and Harry Potter. How do they blend the worlds together? Simple. Samus Aran is from the future who gets sent back in time to Harry Potter's time because of a spell that brings the X-Parasites back, but the spell works by also bringing the person best equipped to deal with it, which just happens to be Samus. And I think that's a very creative idea. A lot of crossover strength, because a lot of make it or break it moments is how they interact the two worlds together. You can make the characters and the plot as good as you can, but if you don't have a valid way to blend the two worlds together in a way that makes sense, then everything still falls apart because people are just gonna nitpick and just blame everything on the other fandom and stuff like that. It's a very, very bad mess. I would probably tell your friend, just even if the stories don't gain as much traction, you would probably get a more devoted fan base if people like it, because then just not label them as a crossover, because then when people read it and they find out it's a crossover, they're gonna feel like they didn't like it. That's my opinion, not perfect, but that's just my opinion. I'd rather just be told the truth up front of what the story is than being lied to. And it's just me. Who do you think would win, Godzilla versus King Tong? Godzilla. I'm a big Godzilla fan. I've been a Godzilla fan ever since I was a kid. It was one of the very few things I loved as a kid. I didn't love a lot as a kid, in involving like a specific fandom sort of thing. When I was a kid, it was just Godzilla, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Castlevania, and that was it. And I honestly think Godzilla is just naturally tankier. Like, you have a bunch of muscles and fur versus a bunch of muscles and scales, and the scales are going to be more durable than muscles and fur. Kong is smarter. Like, there's no doubt about that. Kong is smarter, but I don't think King Kong would be able to just simply penetrate Godzilla's defenses enough to really be able to kill him. That's just my opinion. Like, but honestly, with those two, it can go either way. She also gave me like other suggestions. I'm thinking, what am I? Who am I? Am I DS or am I Whiz and Boomstick from Death Battle? Next suggestion she said is Goku versus Superman. Superman, because Superman literally, Goku has like nothing to counter Superman. He doesn't have magic. He can't really hit anyone. He can't really hit Superman hard enough to really do any damage. And Goku's just just a blum idiot who just wants to fight. And he's like, I just want to fight you. He said, you're going to kill all these people. I don't care, as long as I get a fight. Superman versus Batman. This one's just a nonsense debate. There are so many factors. Like the whole Batman can beat Superman if he has time to prepare sort of deal. Honestly, I would say with Superman versus Batman, I would say depends on the circumstances. Like, depends on how the fight's set up, how, like, is Batman prepared? Like, does Superman know Batman's going to be prepared? Because Superman's going to know that Batman's going to prepare for Superman. It's going to turn into, like, I know you know that I know you know that sort of deal, like from Samurai Jack, when Jack went against Aku, and Jack hit his sword, but Aku knew he hit his sword. But Jack knew that Aku knew that he hit his sword, so he hit a bunch of swords. But Aku knew that Jack knew that Aku knew that Jack knew that he would hide a bunch of swords. So he basically summoned a bunch of little henchmen to find out specifically where they all are. It would just be so much nonsense with Batman versus Superman. And finally, Pinkie Pie versus Deadpool. Really? Pinkie Pie versus Deadpool? A tie. Honestly, if there was any other person, I'd probably give the nod to Deadpool. But this is Pinkie Pie we're talking about. Pinkie Pie. It just I don't even think Deadpool has it in him to even want to hurt Pinkie Pie. The moment she smiles at him, he's like, "Oh, a pony!" and hugs. It's like, but we're supposed to fight. We can party instead. It's like, okay. Oh my god. I just seriously, am I the fanfiction guy, or am I like a death battle analysis guy? I do all of them. I do these things. Godzilla would probably beat Kong. That's like the only one. That and Goku versus Superman. That's because it's Superman. Goku just can't have thing. Next question from Cardboard. Who is your favorite Straw Hat on... this is a One Piece based question because her two stories that I reviewed are One Piece based. I'll do one better. I'll say my favorite One Piece character, my favorite Straw Hat, and my least favorite Straw Hat. My favorite Straw Hat is Nico Robin. I loved her pre-time skip design. I actually think she probably has the worst post-time skip design, mainly because when I first saw her, I legitimately thought that was Boa Hancock. I'm not even lying. Her post time skip design just looks so much like Boa Hancock. I literally was just surprised when they called her Nico Robin. It's like, that's fucking... Wait, what? That's Robin? Then what the hell does Boa Hancock look like? And then it showed Hancock didn't look any different. Yeah, I didn't like Robin's post yet. I like her pre-time skip design. I love her powers. I love her personality. I love the fact she plays like the straight man to literally everyone else. Like, whenever anyone else acts like this goofy over the top, there's Robin just being like, Like, my favorite moment was when, during Thriller Bark, when they did the whole, they turn into, like, they kind of, when they did all the docking thing where, Frankie and all the other Straw Hats minus Robin and Luffy, because Luffy was busy, they do, like, this like this little hilarious like mock robot thing, and then Frankie's like, he looks at his left hand and like notices Robin's not there, and meanwhile Sanji and Zoro are just like dead on the inside. It's like, oh god damn it. And then when Frankie tells you gotta duck, and Robin goes, no, and they all freak out. I honestly thought that was pretty funny. It also makes the moments where Robin does act like the other Straw Hats in like very, very goofy, over-the-top way that much more hilarious. Like when she made that ugly face when she sees that Luffy was in jail in Wano, when she did that very frowning, like, over-the-top face. That just made it all the more memorable because you rarely see her like that. Plus, I love her powers. I just think she has one of the best powers. I think Oda does like a very, very great job of making the most dumb as balls on paper idea into something awesome, like with Luffy, with like rubber. What's Robin's power? Oh yeah, she can summon hands from anywhere. But she can turn her hands in the wings. She can copy herself. According to Oda, she can literally turn herself into a Fuda. I don't even want to know. Apparently that was like a thing one of his fans just kept bothering for, and he decided to just deal with it and just answer it as best he can. She can spy. She can literally stop anyone if she wanted to. She's just completely overpowered. I just love the concept of the Hana Hana no Mi. It's just really fun. With my least favorite, it's Brook. Don't get me wrong, I like Brook. I like his backstory. I love his design. I love his double fruit. I don't like his personality though. I just think his personality of just being very blunt and constantly asking for people's panties, I just think that's kind of weak because because he just kind of reminds me of Robin in some ways, but Robin just does the whole being blunt and serious better, and I just think the whole asking everyone for panties is just really cringy. It's just me. Like, I like everything else about Brook, but it's not his character tics and personality. I just think, everyone better. If you could have a double fruit, which one would you have? I would probably have the book fruit. Who was it? Who actually had that fruit? I'm actually trying to remember who had that specific fruit. I know it was one of Big Mom's family. Where is... I'm trying to remember what his name was. I know it was part of the Big Mom Pirates. I just can't remember who it was. Oh yeah, Charlotte Montdior, the bookkeeper. The Boku Boku Nubi. Boku Boku Momi. Come on. I love to read, and so a devil fruit that allows you to trap people in books and go into books. Come on, I would have a field day with that. I would just love to have that fruit. Or maybe, if not for that one, then probably Sugar's devil fruit, if only because I can be immortal. I don't have to age anymore, so I can just read as much as I want. I can't even remember what's Sugar's fruit. What is Sugar's fruit? It is let's see. Sugar. Yeah. The Hobi no Mi. If only because one, I stopped aging and I just read more. Granted, the Hobi no Mi is just really, really creepy because it just turns people into toys, and people would be able to just forget about you. Honestly, think that'd just be very creepy. There's another fruit that's just really, 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 you wouldn't think is really dangerous, but then Oda made it dangerous. But yeah, the Buku Buku no Mi and the Hobi no Mi. I bet you're probably expecting the Horo no Mi. Horo. Final question is, what in a fanfiction would you want to stop reading it even if you're invested? I would honestly, what really sucks me out of reading a fanfiction is barely anything, but there is one thing, and that is if the plot of a story grinds to a halt. Like, there has to be some progressing. Even if a story kind of stops and slows down with the plot, I'm okay with that because you're giving a chance to relax to the story and kind of get everything set up for the next set piece, like the whole next scene and the next big conflict. Like if you're doing a war, there's one battle and then there's a lull in the action and you're trying to just move everything along and just kind of relax the characters, and then you move on to the scene. That's fine. But when you drag something out to ridiculous degrees, that's when you lose me, and that makes me want to stop reading. The only two examples that I can think of off the top of my head is the most recent fanfiction I read, which was Megami no Hanabira, which the final fight was just dragged on so long, I literally lost interest in it. The only reason I read through it because it was like literally the last chapter of the story, despite the fact the chapter was like really, really long, and I decided to just say, you know what, I'm gonna try and read through it as best as I can. The other example would be Misconceptions, which was a Powerpuff Girls story I reviewed. It dragged like that. The thing was, the plot was amazing, the characters were amazing, but it was just so unnecessarily slow in moving everything around to such a ridiculous degree that I fell asleep reading this multiple times. That story, it dragged on that much that I just took breaks, just stopped reading it for a bit, and then went back and fell asleep. And the only reason I was able to review it was because I knew what was happening, and and the second time I read it, I was able to at least partially skim through a large portion of it. But I still like the story, I still like the characters. It's just way too slow for its own good because the author wanted to focus so hard on the characters. And this is something the author flat out admitted. This is something the author actually tells you in the author's note. I can't remember if it was the first author's note or the last author's note. Can't remember which one it was, that the author sacrificed everything else to just make the characters as good as possible and as developed and three-dimensional and very in-depth. And while the author did a good job with that, the fact that he literally had to sacrifice everything else. He sacrificed everything else. The pacing, even kind of partially destroyed the plot in some places just to get that more character development. Completely sunk the story. It just made me tune out something fierce. I just couldn't handle that story. The only reason I reviewed it again was it was the second time reading it, I actually knew what was happening, so for the most part I just skimmed over the parts that I could skip, which was a lot since it was a 800,000 plus word story. So, there's that. Next question. It was two questions by Tobias Gies. I actually know this guy. I'm actually friends with him on Discord. So, stuff like that. So his first question is, What is the most annoying writing tropes and pet peeves? I don't really have a lot of pet peeves outside of the whole don't drag anything too hard, but that's just more that there is one writing trope that I'm not a fan of, and that is massive exposition, and that is the swerve for the sake of a swerve, a shocking swerve. When I was a kid and growing up, I still am, and I was back then and I still am, a wrestling fan. And if you know anything about wrestling, you should be familiar with the name Vince Russo. Vince Russo is hated by a lot of people for one reason only. He had a massive obsession with shocking swerves for the sake of a swerve. With getting a swerve right, you have to balance the fact of not hinting towards it too much, because then it won't be a swerve anymore, and people will just completely underwhelmed. But if you don't hint at it enough, then people are like, that came out of nowhere. That was just a swerve, and just completely complain about it for just coming out of nowhere. Like with Naruto with Madara Uchiha. I don't know all the context. I'm just going by what I heard. That they completely made Kaguya simply because they wrote themselves into such a corner that they literally could not find a way to kill Madara without thinking of someone with such a game-breaking power to kill Madara, which was Kaguya. So that way Naruto and Sasuke can kill Kaguya, and that was it. I don't know if that's true. That's just what I've heard, that the way they written Madara was such in a way that they literally kill him in a realistic sense in the story, so they had to make up a new character specifically made to kill him, to show up out of nowhere and do that. So, yeah, there's that. But yeah, I don't like when something is just not foreshadowed enough, because then it completely falls apart, and I just hate it. And most of it has to do with the fact that just Vince Russo always did that. Like when in the late 90s, when he worked for WCW, that was basically his MO. He just did car crash TV. Every single match had to have a swerve with people going in and out of the NWO. Oh, he's a good guy. Oh, now he's NWO. Now he's bad guy. Now he's out. And it just didn't make any sense, and nobody liked it. Nobody fucking liked that. I just really, really hate it. He's just good guy with shocking swerves. Fuck off with the shocking swerves. Second question he asked is favorite archetype. I don't know what he means by this, because most of the time me and him play Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know if he means Yu-Gi-Oh! Archetype or like a character archetype. If we're going by answer that, my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Archetype is the Melodious archetype. I just love the artwork. I love the fact that they're just a really hilariously defensive archetype that just means like, oh, you can't target me, you can't destroy me by battle, you can't destroy me by card effects. Good luck. Good luck passing that. It's like, okay, I summon Borreload. It's like, motherfucker. But in terms of a character archetype, I'm a very big fan of the WizKid archetype, like character archetype. I love the whole technological kid, like Futaba Sakura from Persona 4. I love like the super serious straight men to like wacky characters, because I actually love those types of characters. Just like Nico Robin, like I love her because she's just a straight man to every other Straw Hat. Sometimes it's just a variable question, but if I had to say my personal favorite, it would probably be either WizKid or just the same person around like all the wacky characters, because I just love the juxtaposition and stuff like that. Okay, so last couple of questions are from Peter N. Who is your favorite and least favorite original character? My favorite is no surprise. My favorite is Valkyrie, the main antagonist from Fusion of Destinies 2. And if I had to pick two others to go along with her, it'd probably be Helena Cygnus from Straw Hats and the Iliad and Zoro's Odyssey, as well as Jake Cavagna from the redone version of Darkness Arises, because in the original Darkness Arises, he was a Gary Steele. Like he was just a flat out Gary Stu. Like the whole reason why the Redux version, the one I reviewed, was done was specifically he wanted to do the character justice and basically took away all the Stu characteristics of him and made him just an amazing badass character. I love Jake Covenant, but him and Helena don't hold a candle to Valkyrie. Valkyrie is just a very pitch perfect villain. I really love her. Helena's a great great character that fits very well in the world of One Piece. And Jake Covenant is just a badass character that shows how much passion you can do when even the author's willing to admit that he fucked up with his character, made him a Gary Stu in the original, and then devoted literally making the remake solely to fix his character specifically. That's really cool. Least favorite OC, Chopper. Now, you probably never heard of this story, but there's a trilogy or tetralogy of fanfictions called the Paper Chopper series. It's a series written by Mechanical Oven. I fucking hate Chopper. He's literally a Gary Stu. Like, remember how I said about Jake Covenant? Jake Covenant is only a Gary Stu in the original Darkness Arises. In the remake, he's not a Gary Stu. In all three stories of Paper Chopper, because the fourth one is kind of a distant prequel, focusing on a different group of characters, so Chopper's not involved in that story at all. He's a Gary Stu. Like, he gets all the chicks. He's very uninteresting character-wise. All the characters fall in love with him immediately. Even Vivian, who, if you actually played Thousand Year Door, actually falls in love with Mario, but lets him go because she realizes he loves Peach. In very unrealistic ways. Like, it's just bad. Not to mention the stories are just very uninteresting in general. So you have three gigantic, uninteresting stories. The third one is over 1 million words. I don't know how long it actually is because of authors or stuff like that. But he's just so uninteresting. He is literally everything wrong with an OC. And what's even worse is the Paper Chopper series actually has some good ideas. Like, sure, he rips off a lot of ideas. Like he makes a Mario version of Chaos from Sonic Adventure. Like, that's a dumb idea. But then he has a cool idea, like a Amazing Daisy version of the Powerpuff Girls, but he plays it as like a parody. But it's kind of a parody of the Powerpuff Girls because it's even more over the top. And actually pretty entertaining. You have Maquano, who's actually kind of an interesting villain. You have Bob, who was hilarious. But then you have everything. You have a lot of other characters which are just constantly in WoW with Chopper. He kind of is very uninteresting. He's just... I hate the character. If you ever... Go read Paper Chopper. Like, honestly, go read it. And just read specifically for his character. And he shows all the benchmarks of a Gary Stu. He's not a Sue character. I separate a Sue character from a Gary/Mary Sue. Because nowadays, it's fractured enough that they're just two different character art. Like, they're two different things. Jake Covenant was one, but he kind of went to the Sue characteristics because he's still ultra badass, but he works in the context of the redone that he's not a full-on Gary Stu. He just has some of those old qualities of just being an ultra badass, ultra crazy prepared guy who just will punch down anything, but he has flaws, he has depth to his character. Meanwhile, Chopper is so far in the Gary Stu camp, there's just no redeeming the guy. There is just no redeeming him. And I hate him. The only reason I read the first two stories is because everyone around Chopper was more interesting. Chopper's the main character. When you do that bad a job handling a character like that, you know you fucked up. But before I don't want to continue. Before I want to get to the next question, before I just rag on Chopper in that series way more. Oh, God forbid someone actually suggest me to review that, that's gonna be painful. Second question: what are your thoughts on a shared fanfic universe? I actually did review 2 fanfictions that are part of a fanfiction shared universe. They are Fallout Equestria Pink Eyes, which is part of Fallout Equestria, which is, like I said earlier in the video, one of the best fanfictions of all time. And of course, there is of course the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D fanfiction, Shadow Chasers, which is a mammoth fanfiction that a lot of people really love, and I like the story. Like I said, my only complaint in Shadow Chasers is the writing just was written too much like the anime and kind of aged pretty badly. But when that, and the fact that it kind of got repetitive a lot because the writing was just very much like the anime, so take it what you get. It just didn't age poorly in terms of the writing department. But with Fallout question, I love this. I love the idea of shared universes. It's a very risky proposition because there is always a chance that you inadvertently retcon something that someone else made that's actually canon, because you have to have the person who originally write the story, and then you have to have all these different authors put their own ideas, but put it in a way that don't contradict each other. And then there's stuff like non-canon stories, canon stories to like the events of Fallout Equestria. Like, oh, this is actually canon to Fallout Equestria. Like with Pink Eyes, the author of Fallout Equestria considers Pink Eyes canon to the Fallout Equestria lore. But there are some stories that are just non-canon to what's happening because there's just so many different factors. I like the concept, but it's just there's a lot of risks that are going on. And there's always got to be risk involved in that. So it's a fun thought exercise that can bore fruit a lot of the times. Just very fun. Third question. What character would be perfect as a Green Lantern? Apple Bloom. I don't know what. This has nothing to do with the fact that I know jack shit about Green Lantern, and the only reason I remember it is because of a Tumblr comic book series that has Apple Bloom as like Green Lantern. Here, I regret nothing. The final question is, which fanfiction has a good story and characters but bad grammar? It would be Misconceptions. Like I said, the characters and plot of that story is phenomenal. Having adult Powerpuff Girls and Mojo Jojo going off the deep end, basically slowly getting rid of their powers by just putting Antidote X into the drinking water and kind of waving it off as tap water, was ingenious. And them slowly having to take down Mojo's empire with help from the Rowdy Rough Boys was ingenious, and the characters are phenomenal. Again, the pacing is bad. But then the grammar, there's so many grammar errors in that story. Just a lot of grammar errors. I'm not a grammar Nazi, but I would probably turn into a grammar Nazi reading that story. It's that bad. Another story is Better Off Alone, but that one only qualifies in the first half because the grammar errors actually stop around half. Around chapter, how many chapters are on Better Off Alone? Better Off Alone fanfic. How many? There's 31 chapters. I think for like the first 8 chapters, there's a lot of grammar errors, but it cleans up really, really fast. But yeah, other than that, those two are like the only ones that I can think of that are like really good plots and really good characters, but bad grammar. But that's it. Yeah, that's it with all the questions. So this has been Dark Symphony 777. That was the Q&A. I'm happy that I answered your questions. Just make sure to leave your fanfiction suggestions in the comment section below. So this has been Dark Symphony 777, and cut.